Tomasz Kurianowicz.
Thank you very much, Todd. Thanks for having me. It's a great honor. And I remember when I came the first time to America, and we talked about the differences between American and German academic life. You said to me, when you talk, you have to be thorough as in Germany, precise as in Germany, but you also have to be interesting and keep it short. So I try to stick to this advice today. So my topic for today's lecture might sound unusual to you. Love is passion, from Goethe's Elective Affinities to online dating. You might ask, what has the German poet Johann Wolfgang von Goethe to do with online communication? How can one make an analogy between a novel about love in the beginning of the 19th century, the novel was published in 1809, and online dating today? And what does this have in common with German-American relationships? I hope you will get some provocative ideas in the following. First of all, we have to remind ourselves that our understanding of modern love is a completely different one than, let's say, 200 years ago. As the German sociologist Niklas Luhmann has shown in his 1982 published study, Love is Passion, we have to understand love as a code of communication, as a way of structuring relationships. If we do so, we can see that the code love underwent tremendous changes since modernity arose. We know, for example, that in Europe, especially before the French Revolution, marriages were arranged. In other words, fathers sat together and decided on economic and other social principles who should marry whom. You can imagine love, and to a certain extent also sex and sexual attraction, did not matter at all. It was more important to match a couple regarding the legacy of the entire family in order to guarantee a predictable and stable future. Love was a regulator of wealth and stability, not so much a result of free choice or pure chance, in opposition to our understanding of love today. This has changed, obviously, tremendously. And Niklas Luhmann puts the spot on this change, particularly looking at the 18th and 19th century as a demarcation line. He says in his study, I quote, "We shall accordingly assume in the following that modern society is to be distinguished from older social formations by the fact that it has become more elaborate. It affords more opportunities both for impersonal and for more intensive personal relationships." End of quote. In the 18th and 19th century, we can observe the rise of the modern world as we know it today. Think about the French Revolution and the legal rights the modern man has gained afterwards. Aristocracy and the strictly regulating social rules were in decline, and the modern bourgeois man was in rise. The most prominent development is freedom in a broader sense. Our question is now, what does that mean for love? It means I do not have to marry anymore a person which was chosen for me by my parents, but I can ask myself, what is good for me? Or, as the literary scholar Franco Morelli puts it, how can I make myself happy? Happiness is actually an invention, in a way, of the 18th century. Under these circumstances, we can fall in love to everybody and also marry the person we love. During this period, marriage became a consequence of free choice and was first time in history tied to the notion of love and sexuality. For Niklas Luhmann, this is the point of departure for his concept of love as passion. The individual choice for a partner, which relies on own emotions and decisions, becomes now the regulating principle in more complex European societies. So, in Goethe's Elective Affinities, we can observe this change very well. The characters in the novel want to find the right fit. But what does it mean? How can they know that they really found the right partner? Not religion regulates love, not their parents' choice, but pure chance in our desires. And this is why modern life gets tricky. If we start to ask ourselves what is the best of all possible worlds, life becomes extremely complicated. Time is limited and youth passes away quickly. In the same time, we have more and more possibilities to structure our life. There are more and more choices. Sociologists like Barry Schwartz call the consequence the paradox of choice. And this is also the basic analysis of Luhmann regarding modernity. When freedom arises, we are confronted with a paralyzing amount of options. We start to ask questions like, who am I? With whom do I want to be together? What kind of profession should I choose? There are millions of possibilities, and we have to make one decision. This is difficult. I want to read quickly the first paragraph of the second chapter of the novel to make you understand the shift. We have Eduard, a German aristocrat, which is a concept which is in decline, who is married to Charlotte, a beautiful girl. This is his second marriage though. Eduard's first marriage was arranged by his parents. His first wife had died, and afterwards he wanted to marry the love of his life, Charlotte. We hear about it in retrospect. I quote, "Eduard was not used to deny himself anything. He was an only boy and pampered, and his wealthy parents had doted on him. They had persuaded him to marry a woman far older than himself, an unconventional but very advantageous match. After her death, which was not long delayed, he was his own master." This is the moment where freedom arises. He could travel wherever he liked. He could do whatever he liked. His desires were moderate, but he had an appetite for many and various things. He was candid, amiable, stout-hearted. He was even valiant if he had to be. What was there in all the world that could stand in his way? End of quote. Voila, that's the rise of the modern man. He gets Charlotte, but what is the problem? After a while, he's bored. As the narrator says, we want variety and unfamiliar things. End of quote. Eduard tries to convince Charlotte to invite another man to their home and also another girl. Although Charlotte does not want to allow it, she's truly anti-modern and does not want to see any change, Eduard can convince his wife. The friend who's being introduced as the Captain Otto arrives at their castle, and after a while, also the young woman Ottilia. So we have now 4 different people at one place. Now, and this is important, the friend proposes something very unusual. He wants to try a new couple matching principle. Referring to natural sciences, and particularly to chemistry, he calls the matching principle elective affinities. Some elements in chemistry, that's his opinion, are coming together, they attract each other by default. Some do not, they push each other away. He wants to try the same principle within social life, particularly regarding love, because he believes that this, what works in nature, should also work in the social sphere. I quote, "One can actually demonstrate attraction and relatedness. In the relinquishment and seizing, in this fleeing and seeking, one really can believe witnessing a higher determination. One credits such entities with a species of will and choice, and regards the technical term elective affinities as entirely justified." End of quote. But the anti-modern Charlotte is suspicious. She does not believe in algorithms or predictability. I quote, "These figures of speech are pretty and amusing, and who does not like to play with analogies? But man is so much more elevated above those elements, and if he has in this instance been somewhat liberal with the fine words choice and elective affinities, it is well for him to turn and look within himself, and then consider truly what validity such expressions possess." End of quote. Now, who is right at the end of the novel? That's my question. What does Goethe show? In fact, he shows, ironically, that Charlotte had good reasons for her dark premonitions. The matching principle does not work. It turns out that natural sciences cannot predict social life. To put it in Charlotte's words, all such undertakings are perilous adventures. No one can foresee what will come of them. Such new arrangements can produce happiness or unhappiness without our venturing to ascribe to ourselves any particular merit or blame. End of quote. The book ends tragically. The girl dies, Eduard dies, the friend is gone, Charlotte remains alone, a widow, desperate. The experiment fails. Now, why is it so interesting to us? Because this matching principle, which Goethe calls elective affinities, was overtaken and introduced in a modified version by Silicon Valley here in the United States. Online dating sites like OkCupid or Match.com work on similar assumptions as the chemistry experiment in the novel. The assumption is if we put some elements together, find an algorithm, then we can find also the best match in true love. Nowadays, we think same interests are the best ground for love as passion. We do not question this assumption as a social construction, but we take it for granted. In the 18th century, women did not read and they could not vote. Instead, their beauty was important and fertility, but not their interests. Today, we think about obviously differently. This is crucial. Like in Goethe's novel, we know that math and love do not really work on the same basis. In fact, psychologists could prove that there is no relation between falling in love and having a high match. Also, there's no relation between high matching results and happiness. Research has shown that the way we communicate with our partner, how much effort we put into the relationship, is way more important than same interests or a high match. In fact, psychologists still do not know why and how we fall in love. This is still totally unclear to us. Call it magic. But companies are selling the matching principle as a scientifically proven method in order to make money. In my last part, I want to draw your attention to another problem which is related to online dating as a consequence of the rise of the modern world, a problem which starts to be more and more relevant both in Germany and in the United States. Through online dating, America changed the discourse about love. Math, analysis, statistics, algorithms are the main source to predict human relationships. Think about online dating, but also about Google and Facebook. 10 years ago, online dating was in Germany an uncommon practice. Now, in big cities, where more and more singles are suffering from the paradox of choice, more people start to use online dating and believing in the mathematical approach. OkCupid, an American online dating website, which also works in Germany, is extremely popular. But the question is, does those matching methods solve our modern problem of finding the right partner? Can we predict the perfect match? I think not. Just the opposite. It makes it for many people even more complicated. It's very interesting to see that in New York or Berlin, the cities where I live in and where thousands of users are registered, there's never a 100% match. Maybe 97, maybe 98, but never 100. The online dating algorithm suggests implicitly the pick you get might be decent, good, or even very good, but never perfect. Maybe there is or will appear a better fit. Even in times of online dating, Edward's doubts remain vivid. There could be a better option, a better deal. And what happens in a hypermodernity where so many potential partners are accessible? You worry that you commit to a partnership too early. The New York Times defined it in the article The End of Courtship by Alex Williams, a very nice terminology for this anxiety, FOMO, the fear of missing out. We are the person and we are satisfied, but immediately there's a voice in our head which says there could be a better deal. I quote the Times, online dating services which have gained mainstream acceptance enforce the hyper-casual approach by greatly expanding the number of potential dates. Faced with a never-ending stream of singles to choose from, many feel a sense of fear of missing out, so they opt for a speed dating approach. Cycle through lots of suitors quickly, end of quote. What is the result? We lose the ability to commit to a relationship. We rather remain in a mode of terroring, waiting. We cannot make any decision, and this becomes, through individualization, a problem for whole society. In Germany, we have a strong economy, but more and more singles. As a consequence, the birth rate is shrinking. Here in America, you can solve this problem through immigration. In Germany, this doesn't work. Sociologist and Harvard professor Robert Putnam analyzed the shift in the US, and he could prove that more and more people isolate themselves from their communities and cannot find a right partner. Individualization leads to fragmentarization, narcissism, and solitude. He analyzed bowling clubs and could prove that there is a rise of singles regarding new member registrations. They play alone. Putnam claims that this has created a US population that is increasingly isolated and less empathetic toward its fellow citizens, that is often angrier and less willing to unite in communities or as a nation. He picked a catchy title for his book, with which I want to close my talk today. This title also refers to the end of Goethe's novel. I want to use it as a little metaphor in order to describe Charlotte's desperate situation after the matching experiment fails. The title is Bowling Alone. Thank you very much.